Hi, everybody. Luke Thomas here. It's like Sunday around noon East Coast time. I made it home from the Mohegan Sun Arena. We wanted to do a post-fight show for UFC 253 last night, but, we just had no time. The fights on the Showtime side didn't end till way past 1 a.m., and then the crew had to tear down before they could set up the next one. So I didn't get to bed till 3. My taxi to leave was at 5 a.m. There was just no time. So I got home, I said hi to my daughter, we put her down for a nap, and I said, okay, if we can't do a post-fight show, and we do have a morning combat tomorrow, a full and complete one, Brian and I decided it would still be, I think, a good idea to give you just a couple of thoughts on last night's UFC 253 main and co-main event for what it is worth. So let me get the actual result, specific results by number, by, round and the method and the whole 9 yards, the specifics of the details. Go something like this. Let's start with the main event here. We'll cover everything in every detail tomorrow. This is just a little bit of a teaser, a little something for your Sunday, I hope, right? Courtesy of Brian won't be here, but he certainly he wanted me to do this, so he'll be there tomorrow. Okay, Israel Adesanya defeating Paulo Costa, at 3:59 of round 2. This was not a fight. This was a butchering. Paulo Costa got cut to fish bait, and I thought Adesanya was going to win, but I almost feel like I was wrong because while I did believe in his abilities, I thought he would get it done late, and I kind of thought he was going to have to walk through hell. That didn't happen at all. Paulo Costa got, totally outclassed in basically every way, right? It's not surprising in the sense that, you knew he wasn't the technician that Adesanya was. I think even Costa's fans would admit that. Okay. So you thought that was not going to be really in dispute. The issue was, in MMA, especially much more so than boxing, but in MMA, being physically strong, a barrel down on you type of forward pressure guy, big power, durability. He had shown durability. And the one thing I do think that is underrated about Costa is he's got very good takedown defense. He's got good takedown defense, good scrambling. Obviously, that was not really relevant here, and so I thought that was just going to matter because in MMA, with a big punch and durability, you can do a lot because the margin for error is so little. There's so many more offensive techniques. The gloves land with more authority. It's just harder to stop that kind of a thing. Whereas in boxing, I think if you're a very skilled operator, you can, even if the right angles and four corners makes ring generalship a little bit harder, actually a lot harder. But okay, you get the idea. It's a skill set where you can literally win world titles doing that. So you knew he was up against with Adesanya, but you thought, okay, he's going to take his pound of flesh. Nope. No, that did not happen at all. Okay, so I've got to go back and look at the footage another time to really get a sense of things. But how did Adesanya win? A bunch of things. But the key is, one, he made Costa think. And Costa is not a thinker. He's a rhythm fighter, right? He gets into a flow. He gets into a state, and then he just lets it rip. Adesanya never let him do that. Between the feints that backed him up, or some of the kicks that would back him up, or even some of the punches that would back him up. Maybe they landed, maybe they didn't, but they forced him to, retreat to a degree. The other part is he just couldn't get off. He couldn't get going. He couldn't get if you're a rhythm fighter, part of that is just volume. And because he was constantly trying to reason through what Adesanya was showing him with the different looks and the feints, and then it looks like I'm going to go high, and then it's leg kick, right? And then I'm going to freeze you in space and then leg kick you, right? Or freeze you in space and you think it's going to be the leg kick, and then it's teep up the middle. Like whatever it was, he was getting tricked into it. So it would freeze him. It would reduce his volume. It would back him up at times. It would never let him going. And even when he tried to get going, I want you to pay attention to something. I talk about it all the time on Morning Combat Dissected, those two black lines, right? And I call the space behind that the warning track, which is a term I take from baseball. It's sort of that last set of feet right before a ball is hit into the stands for a home run. If you're a European or somewhere from outside of America or Asia, just go look at any picture of any Major League Baseball park in the United States, and then look at the space in center field or left field or right field, whatever, but the field right before it hits the stands in the outfield. And you'll see there's like this dirt track right at the top of the edge. That's called the warning track. I call that the warning track in MMA as well, because once you're there, like in boxing, you can kind of lean on the ropes, you can do a lot of stuff. But once you're trapped up against that wall, it's a completely different ball game. Your options are very narrow. Notice what Adesanya does. When he is either in front of or straddling the two black lines, he's very cautious, a lot of hip feints, a lot of foot feints, a lot of shoulder feints, a lot of leg kicking, right? So he's dynamic, but dynamic from a certain range, a longer range. And then when he gets into, and then as he begin to accumulate damage with the leg kicks, you saw Costa, by the way, by the second round, totally backed up. But in the first round, certainly what you saw was Costa trying to barrel down on him to the extent he was pushed behind the two black lines, which was rare. Sometimes he would go one way and then juke his way out the other side. But the other key was, did you notice the glove control? So he would have his right hand to Costa's left hand. And that way, with glove control, one, he could measure where he was, and then two, he could anticipate what was coming because you're already controlling that one side, right? Speaking of the city kickboxing guys, Volkanovski does it to a degree. Conor McGregor does it as well. A lot of guys do the glove control. I'm just sort of making a point. And it eliminates, essentially, attacks from one side. It measures, and so it enables him to figure out what's coming from that side. So he was able to put glove control on to then jab inside of it, to get around. Or when Costa, standing in orthodox, would want to throw his rear leg kick, he would throw it. Did you guys notice how many times Adesanya caught it at an outside angle so he could catch it, throw punches or strikes, and then get back to center? Like, they not only froze him, but when he tried to get to his trademark stuff, they had him audited. I mean, Paulo Costa got audited on Saturday night. That is what happened. And they took away most of everything he does, and the stuff that he normally does that is pretty successful, even if he has to eat a few, they had an answer for, ready to go, and Adesanya executed it to perfection. That is one of the most masterful UFC title-winning performances any of us have ever seen. I'm not saying it's number one, but it's on the short list for... I mean, I've seen, when Rich Franklin beat Nate Quarry, it was a bit of a mismatch. This ended up being a mismatch, but not because they had put a contender in a spot to earn a title shot before he had really done so. I mean, Costa deserved this title shot. As a champion, you have to defend it. And he still got absolutely smoked like salmon. That was a master class. I've made this point before, and I think Brian and I had debated it last week on Morning Kombat. I think he's in agreement with me, too. Adesanya is your second best middleweight champion ever. I know some folks want to say Rich Franklin. Rich Franklin's two title defenses were Evan Tanner and Nate Quarry. Nope. Some might say Luke Rockhold. Nope. I mean, he's got all the ability in the world, but he didn't have the title reign. Bisping held the title for a long time, but his only defense was Dan Henderson, and that was a guy who didn't deserve the title, and that was a close fight. Title shot anyway. So that wouldn't count. The only other name you could bring up is not Bustamante, not Dave Manet. It's nobody other than Chris Weidman. And the reason why it would be debatable, you could go with Chris Weidman if you wanted to afford him the significance of the two Silva wins. Some people don't look at them as all that special because they say he got Silva on the downswing and blah, blah, blah. I'm not here to relitigate it. I just think it's a reasonable case to make for Weidman. I wouldn't argue too much with it. But for me, the case is pretty easily on the side of Adesanya. I mean, to be 20 fights in, undefeated, 4 title fights, one of them interim, but still, 4 title fights, and you've beaten and stopped Robert Whittaker. You've beaten and stopped Paulo Costa. You fought Romero. It sucked, but you won. And then you nearly stopped Kelvin Gastelum. You outclassed Brad Tavares. You beat Marvin Vettori. You demolished Rob Wilkinson. Stop Derek Brunson. I mean, that is an incredible run, folks. And to do that in less than 3 years, he made his debut in February of 2018 in the UFC. So all of that is not part of the championship reign. Just the part from Gastelum on is. But it tells you, Silva has done so much work, and Adesanya, I think, would agree, is far behind Silva. It's going to take a long time before you match that. But in terms of number 2, I would put him there. I think his resume is and the accomplishment, and then doing this to a modern-day gladiator. Yes, he was not we've talked about it before, he didn't have the X's and O's down in a way that Adesanya did, but in the modern game, he was a formidable fighter, and he will be a formidable fighter again. He got audited. He got audited big time. Some people were upset with Adesanya's showboating. I don't really care. This is a sport where we're not supposed to condemn fighters being mean to each other. I don't know why you're supposed to care about that. If you're consistent and you want more sportsmanship across the board, okay, fine, I wouldn't argue with it. But, this is a sport where people are mean to each other. I think we all have a line that we don't want fighters to cross, and that line's going to be different for you, for me, for them, for those. But for me personally, they talked a gang of shit. He's going to do the dry hump thing. It doesn't really bother me. So the key there is that is one of the most... Adesanya is maybe the smartest fighter that we have, and he won that, yes, on the smoothness of his technique and his brains completely. There was this weird issue with Adesanya's right pectoral. I don't know what it is, and I want to be very clear that I'm not going to make any claims that I know what it is. I don't know if it's some kind of medical issue or injury. Some had suggested it's the result, and again, these are just accusations. I don't know. I do not know to what extent there's an evidentiary basis for them, but some had suggested it's botched PED use. I don't know what it is, but it does deserve to be answered because that's an unusual thing to see. But we'll follow up on that a little bit later. Still, incredible performance by Israel Adesanya. And he is going to, if he stays humble and stays working and remains... By the way, here's another thing. Does the guy ever get injured? I mean, it's incredible how much he is able to just turn over and turn over and turn over and turn over and then keep fighting. I mean, this was a long layoff because of the pandemic, and he had that long run where he had 6 fights in a row that were back to back to back to back and blah, blah, blah. But pretty amazing he can keep going that way. All hail the king. Israel Adesanya is the king. Okay, which takes us to the co-main event. Man, Jan Belhovic, he wins, 436 of the second round. Like the main event, wasn't especially close. Wow, Jan Belhovic, man. You got to be proud of that guy. I don't even know him. I don't even know Jan Belhovic. You got to be proud of the guy. 37 years of age. I wonder where that puts him in terms of oldest light heavyweight champs, which is to say how old they were when they won it. Obviously, in a division that had Randy Couture, without looking at the numbers, I'm going to guess Randy Couture is the oldest, but 37 is pretty old, especially for the modern day. Here's one of these guys that when did he make his UFC debut? Can anyone tell me who he fought in his UFC debut? He fought a long career in KSW. He made his debut against Goran Reljic. I remember that guy in March of 2013. No, sorry, that was KSW. I'm sorry. He made his debut against Ilir Latifi 2014. I apologize. During that time, he was sort of known because then he lost to Jimmy Manuwa. He lost to Corey Anderson. He beat Igor Pekrajic, and then he lost to Gustafsson and Cummings. Okay, so in his first 6 UFC fights, he lost 4 of them. He lost basically 2 out of every 3 in his first 6 fights, and then just went on the tear of all tears. After that, he beat Devin Clark, Jimmy Manuwa, Nikita Krylov. He did lose to Thiago Santos, who I think we can all agree could be your next title challenger. Then beat Luke Rockhold, Jacare, Corey Anderson, and now Dominic Reyes. That guy is the little engine that could. He's one of these fighters who, for the longest time, was just sort of known as like good European fighter. Like if the UFC goes to Germany or the UK or whatever, hey, throw old, Jan Blachowicz on the card. And you know what? The dude dared to dream. He dared to be great. And he just kept getting better and didn't give up on himself and made clear progress, which you could tell between the first and second Corey Anderson fights. He got out-wrestled, out-controlled, totally ground and pounded in the first one, and he bludgeoned Corey Anderson in the second. Amazing, amazing growth. And to have that growth that late in your athletic life, relatively speaking, it's impressive, man. He is a testament to, like, dude, some people peak early. Some people have longer reigns than other ones. I don't know how long he's going to be the light heavyweight champ. I almost don't even care. I guess I would love for him to continue to do well. He's a great story to root for. I just mean, dude, sometimes people don't get to shine until a little bit later in their runs. But by God, he found a way to do it. Dude, I'm proud of that guy. You just gotta be like, you know what? Salute, good sir, because no one handed that guy shit. Nothing. Speaking in a second language, having to fly. Look at where his fights took place. Some of them were in Poland, and a lot of them were in Europe more generally. Buffalo, New York, Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. Had to go to Moscow, Las Vegas, Sao Paulo, Brazil, Rio Rancho, New Mexico. Here he is in Abu Dhabi. road warrior. The last time he fought in Poland was when he fought Devin Clark, which was the beginning of his big winning sort of reign, Thiago Santos fight notwithstanding, all the way back in 2017. Man, so how did he do it? The key was he completely frustrated Dominic Reyes. Reyes was trying to elicit openings, right? Whereas Adesanya was trying to create openings by shutting Paulo Costa down. Reyes was trying to do the opposite. He was trying to create openings through motion, through rather than just standing there, you get him to react. And patient old Belhovic didn't bite on the feints. He kept very tight positioning. He opened on his terms. He found ways to land that were very confusing. I think Reyes had trouble at time closing the distance. And then finally, he was able to force these exchanges. And, dude, that's just the style he's built for. He tore Reyes up. I have to go look at the tape to see exactly how he did in the finishing sequence again. I'll probably do that at a later date. But he basically, for as long as Reyes was trying to put the fight on his terms, Belhovic refused. And then at the times where it was sort of neutral-ish, you could see Belhovic just grab the fight by the scruff of the neck and be like, nope, this is going to be one of my kind of fights. We're going to do this on my terms. And that is exactly what he did. So he's your UFC light heavyweight champ. Still wants a shot at John Jones. I guess what's going to happen, we don't know this yet, but it looks like probably the winner of Teixeira versus Thiago Santos will end up being the next contender, I suspect. I don't know exactly what happens to Dominic Reyes here. He looked out of sorts. That was a really poor performance from him. And I do think that what he showed against John Jones is not an accident. It also sort of tells you John Jones was probably exiting the division at the right time. And now maybe he beats Belhovic. But, you know, it's not coincidental to me that, like, when GSP beat Hendricks, and I thought Hendricks beat him, he crawled out of that octagon on his hands and knees, and he handed that belt back and was able to sort of pick, you know, the fight that he wanted later against Bisping to really solidify his legacy. Jones, I thought, lost to Reyes, and then it was like, you know what, maybe we'll go on to heavyweight. I mean, I think the circumstances that forced each one to a different weight class or whatever time off are a little bit different, but there is that through line between them. And maybe Belhovic would have won, man. I don't know. That guy looked pretty impressive, did he not? That was a totally veteran performance, a clever performance, patient. And when it was his time to strike, no hesitation, right? Don't strike when it's not your time, and that's hard to do. And then when the right window is open, dive through it. And he did. And he got a title along the way. Very surprising. He was a huge underdog, if memory serves. I think he was like a plus 500. Let me just be sure about this if I can. I want to make sure I don't give you bad information. He was a plus 400. Plus 400. Yeah, minus 600. Excuse me, no. Fake news. Sorry. It was much tighter. About a plus 200. Plus 220 in certain places. So not so bad. Still, they got it wrong. Pretty impressive win for them. And one of these sort of feel-good, out-of-nowhere kind of stories. There might be some of you watching who were like, I've always known Jan was going to be great. Hey, man, congratulations. I always respected him. I didn't know he was necessarily capable of this, but one of those times where you're really glad to be surprised, you're very glad to be wrong, and sometimes these, again, some guys like Israel Adesanya shot out of a cannon from the word go, you know, but just a not a celebrity overnight, but a celebrated figure in the sport overnight. And then Belhovic, just sort of, you know, sometimes the tortoise does beat the hare in the race. Pretty incredible. We are going to go over these two fights in detail tomorrow with Brian Campbell. We'll go over the rest of that card. We'll recap our weekend as well at the Charlo Doubleheader from the Mohegan Sun. Just wanted to give you a quick reaction video here for that main and co-main for UFC 253. We're sorry we couldn't do something that night, but it was just a crazy, crazy set of circumstances we were trying to deal with. So we thank everybody who watched our coverage all week. 3 shows starting next week on Morning Combat, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 11 a.m. in the East, 8 p.m. in the West, 8 a.m. in the West. So a lot of content coming your way. A lot of good stuff. Yeah? All right. Please give the video a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. Thanks you so much for watching this and everything else that we do. Me and BC will join you tomorrow. And until then, may all of your gains be loyal.